Madam Clerk, I call this meeting to order. Thursday, April 14th, 2022. Will you call the roll, please?
Good evening, everyone. I will begin with Director Clark. We are doing attendance.
Oh, here. I'm sorry. I was distracted.
Physical but mental.
Right.
Director Jones. Good tonight. Present.
Orzali.
Present.
White.
Here.
Wood is absent. Gould.
Present.
Kelly.
Present.
Sheets.
Present.
And President Saylor's turning it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And here comes Director Wood. Give you a moment to get your seat.
My apologies.
Next is the Metro Cable announcement. The open session meeting is videotaped for cablecast on Metro Cable 14, replay on Sunday, April 17th at 12 noon, and Monday, April 18th at 6 p.m. on Channel 14, webcast at metro14live.saccounty.net. We now have the public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within district jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
There are no speakers here in person. Art, could you please unmute our virtual participants?
Yes, attendees, you have the ability to unmute yourselves if there's anything you'd like to present to the board at this time, please. No response.
All right, thank you, Art.
We have no speakers out there tonight. Moving on to the consent items. Do we have any questions on the consent items?
Madam Chair, I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will you call the roll, please?
Director Gould.
Aye.
Orzali.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
And Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next up, action items. The first one, ratification of resolution to extend teleconference of board meetings, Government Code 54953E3. Do we have any questions? I'll take a motion in a second.
Make a motion that we adopt the ratification of resolution to extend teleconference of board meetings.
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Will you call the roll, please, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Director Gould.
Aye.
Orzali.
Aye.
Wood.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
And Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Our next item on the action items, number 2, is the dissolution agreement for the California Fire and Rescue Training Authority, CFRTA, Chief Harms and General Counsel Lava.
I'll start.
Okay.
Good evening, directors. Thank you for having this item on here tonight. In June of 2021, OES notified the JPA of their intent to dissolve the JPA. We have worked over the past year on both the legal side of it, the logistical side, long-term documentation that needed to be retained, along with a number of employee matters as we move forward with the dissolution. General Counsel John Lavra has been very involved in the, I would say, the legal side of it and making sure that all of the agreements, whether it would be our lease with Zinfandel or a property lease or the overall dissolution, was put together an agreement for moving forward. And then I'll turn it over to John now for the final part there.
Okay, thank you, Chief. And just to back up a little bit, this board has previously approved the notice of withdrawal by Metro Fire as a member from that JPA. So that notice of withdrawal, coupled with the state Cal OES's notice of withdrawal, resulted in a termination of and requiring dissolution of the JPA under the terms of the JPA contract. So once the board gave approval to that notice of withdrawal, the counsel for the JPA hired outside counsel to represent them in connection with wrapping up the affairs and terminating the agreement. And so the first thing they did is look at the lay of the land and advise that a dissolution agreement be put in place to control the procedures for wrapping up and terminating the JPA. And so that's what we've been working on for the last 3 or 4 months or so on the legal side. And what we have before you tonight is the dissolution agreement that has been agreed to by counsel for all of the members of the JPA and the attorneys who are advising the JPA on the dissolution agreement. Cal OES has voted and approved. Let me back up. The JPA has voted to approve this dissolution agreement, but it's subject to approval of the legislative or executive boards of the JPA members. So in that regard, Cal OES has approved this. The Sacramento City Council approved this dissolution agreement on a Tuesday night. So we're here tonight asking for approval of this dissolution agreement. One other thing I should note is that the staff report indicates that we were seeking approval for the dissolution agreement and for President Director Sailors to execute the documents in connection with the dissolution agreement. That is not what we're asking for. We're asking that the board approve the dissolution agreement and give authority to the fire chief as the representative member of Metro Fire and the JPA to execute the agreement. And I apologize for that. We've had so many what has been termed by the attorneys as final agreements come through. And when it's final, it isn't final. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times we've changed a word around or a comma around. And so there's a little hitch in that part of the staff report. So the main parts of the dissolution agreement, number one, called for the termination of the JPA. It would be terminated as of the end of this fiscal year, so June 30th of 2022. So it would no longer be in legal existence. It would no longer be a legal entity. However, there's still obligations and liabilities and assets that need to be looked at and disposed of and returned and things like that. And so the parties agreed to the appointment of a dissolving member, which would be the Cal OES chief, who would be able then to work to conclude and pay off final bills, final liabilities, pay off assets, prepare an audit report, and do the things that would be necessary to wrap up the affairs of the entity, since the entity couldn't do it on its own because it ceases to exist as of June 30th. So that's one major part of the agreement. It also calls for disposition of the assets according to the original JPA agreement that was executed back in the 1990s. And so that's what the JPA is going through now, is returning property that's been contributed by members. So if there's and that's what the inventory list is that you see. So if there's certain property that has been contributed by a member, that gets returned to the member. If there's property that was purchased with JPA funds based upon contributions from the members, then that's a property that would be disposed of, and any assets that remain returned to the JPA members in proportion to their membership. The other point is that the JPA agreement allows the the dissolution agreement allows the JPA to approve up to $50,000 in retained funds. That was a number that was chosen to give enough leeway, if necessary, to pay off assets and liabilities after termination. But from last we've heard, the auditors don't think it will be that much, but they have to have some money in the accounts if necessary to write the checks and to do the things that need to be done in order to wind up the financial affairs. There's also anything that's left over in terms of assets or cash assets are returned to the members in proportion to their contributions, which is 40% to Cal OES, 30% to Sac City Fire, and 30% to Sac Metro Fire. There's also a cap at $150,000, which is very, very unlikely to come into play. And that says that if there's more than $150,000 to be dispersed, any amounts over $150,000 have to be approved of by the JPA board. And the reason for that is Cal OES in the final year of operation contributed more than their 40% member share, so that if we exceeded $150,000, Metro Fire and Sac City, if they were paid back in proportion to their contributions, could receive back more than they put in. And so it doesn't call for any particular distribution at above 150, but it requires the council to go back and determine prior to the termination of the JPA whether there's that kind of money left. I've been told, based on the current state of the audit, that there's no way that's going to happen, but it was put in there just as a protection in the event that there's a crazy amount of money left over. So those are the main points. I think it's something that is necessary to have. You have to have a contractual mechanism between the parties in order to determine how to wrap up the affairs. The terms that are in this agreement reflect and are consistent with the terms of the JPA. One other point, there would be a wrap up of the 50-year lease on the Zinfandel property. And that's really not going to be of too much of an effect, because the terms of that lease agreement state that in the event of dissolution, that lease agreement terminates on notice. And so the parties have given notice that the dissolution is happening. And so there was a safety valve kind of written into that lease agreement that, hey, if this thing dissolves, don't come back to look at the members for 50 years of whatever remedy might be available if there's a dissolution. If the JPA had continued to exist and there were amendments to continue its legal existence beyond the date of this dissolution, it might be another matter. But with it being dissolved, taking care of that Zinfandel lease has become really a pretty straightforward issue. So I've gone over these terms, reviewed the terms, met many times with all of the attorneys, and I believe the contract is in order, and it's our recommendation that the board approve the dissolution contract and provide authority to Chief Arms to execute the agreement. I can answer any questions.
Are there any questions from any board members?
Madam Chair, I have a quick question.
Go ahead, Director Gould.
Thank you. John, has anyone considered doing some kind of an after dissolution review? I think it's important that we look at some of the reasons that this JPA collapsed or dissolves, so that we don't repeat those same issues going forward in the future, because JPAs appear to be one of those things that government agencies try to do in coming together as different organizations under one umbrella. And I would just think that given the substance of our vision for what this could have been, it would be nice to have some kind of a report that sheds some light on why we weren't successful in this endeavor.
I can answer that question in two parts, and maybe Chief Arms knows more about the background of how this came to be. First of all, under the original JPA agreement, the JPA was going to cease to exist as of 2027. So that was the term that was originally written in back in the 1990s as to the length of time the JPA would exist. Now that could have been changed by amendment, but that was something that is written into the contract and exists as of now. Number two, The dissolving member, Cal OES, is required to provide a final audit report so we can see, at least from a financial standpoint, how things ended up and what the financial condition was and how the assets and liabilities were handled. That will happen as soon as reasonably possible, no later than December 31st of 2022. I'm not really privy as to the thing. This was really started by Cal OES. When Cal OES was going to pull out their 40% interest in the JPA, that kind of was the first domino that fell. I don't know, Chief Harms may know more about Cal OES's thinking, which started the process, but I'm not able to speak to that.
I think there's two sides. Is one, Cal OES has decided to go in a different way, and they are moving forward with that. There is not something to bring together right now to have a discussion at the table, or do I know if there's any interest from the other parties? I will say from the fire side of it and in the region, what we have is the Sac County Fire Training Group pulling together and looking at not just what we had in the JPA, but what is in the JPA, and then the classes that are being offered, whether it's in El Dorado County or in Yolo County, and truly coordinating that we're not duplicating the classes that are out there. Right now, there is the exact same classes within 2 weeks of each other being offered in a number of places. And so the goal now is to, without Cal OES, is the fire service here locally, looking at the needs and the training needs, and really the training that was provided by the JPA, and making sure that there is not a gap in the future as we move forward.
Thank you.
Director Kelly.
Yes, either Chief or Mr. Labra. My question is revolving around ownership of the property at Armstrong, or excuse me, the ownership of the property at the training center is located on. Does the district still retain controlling ownership rights of that property, or are there others that believe that they are entitled to ownership of certain areas of the property?
The ownership of the property will revert to, entitled to the property reverts to the district.
Thank you.
Along with the fixtures.
All of the props that were built out there, any of the infrastructure that was put into there, any of the additional upgrades that were done during that time, all revert to the district.
With the exception of the 737, right? That's been designated as a JPA asset, so that if there's issues on how to get rid of the thing, everyone can help pay to get rid of it.
Go ahead. No, go on.
Just the inventory list that's here. Is this the comprehensive everybody's, or is this Metro's inventory? Because I'm not sure, it lists location as box 12, box 10. So I was trying to see if there's a way to understand how these will be distributed.
So that's the inventory of all the assets that are out there. There is actually, when you look at those things, they're put together in boxes of all confined space equipment or all trench equipment. And so the request is that the training chiefs each put in different things that they would like to have. So we put in that we would like to have one of the complete sets for confined space and have that come to Metro. We agreed, both, I would say the city and Metro agreed to be less on the dollar amount of it, and to be able to have all the stuff that was for trench or all of the stuff that was made for a class. And unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that is out there, a lot of the old rope and everything really just needs to be disposed of. But it didn't make sense that you would take one part of the trench and not take the other part. And the way they were put together was, it was a mod that would be able to go teach a class with it and be able to do it. So the overall, the assets that are out there are pretty beat up. and have been used, and a lot of it needs to be replaced, but there are some things that each of the agencies will move forward with.
Is there anything that truly being surplus, sold, and
Not right now, no.
okay, just assets are being divided equitably amongst the member agencies?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, Director Jones, go ahead.
Thank you. In case there is a disagreement about distribution of the assets, how is that resolved?
Are you talking about the property inventory?
No, the assets. I think.
Everything. Well, does it revert to the council that, like, the executor of the will,
Yeah.
so to speak?
Yeah, the property on the inventory, that's already been looked at and inventoried, and the ownership to where that goes has been designated as either the JPA, Cal OES, Metro Fire,
Okay, so
or whatever. So that's that. If there's a question about the distribution of assets, that's controlled by the original JPA agreement, and it's returned in proportion to the pro rata stake of each member. And if there's some dispute about that, the council has to resolve that dispute. And if the council can't resolve that dispute, and there continues to be a dispute, then the next step would have to be some legal remedy to enforce whatever position the party was taking in the situation.
And refresh my memory, council is a third party, or is this council of OES?
The council for CFRTA is council just for them.
Okay,
And they're
so
not council representing, and that's why there was separate council, because if they used me or used the Sac City attorney, we would obviously have maybe a different interest in
okay,
how it looked.
so that council that was associated with the previous JPA is going to handle any disagreement or discussion about distribution?
Oh, the council, you mean, I was thinking council as an attorney.
No,
Well, you
so
use
right
that
now,
word.
all training stops at the end of this month.
Yes.
Everything has been.
This month?
Yeah,
Right.
so the end of this month is the last training is done.
Okay.
And then we have May and June to divide up the last of the assets.
Mhm.
If there would become an issue where we disagreed on the limited supply of stuff that was out there, then the 3-member board, us, the city, and the OES would make the final determination on what happens with that
Okay.
assets at the end of it. I guess if we couldn't decide, the attorneys could get involved with it. I don't see there being an issue with the limited amount of stuff that really is out there. moving
Just
forward.
checking in terms of trying to anticipate ways for resolution if there was a concern.
In my understanding, there's a financial auditor involved also, and they have their separate counsel. And we have the agreement that says, here's how the assets and liabilities have to be apportioned.
Thank you.
All right, no other questions from the board? The next 2 items will be taken care of after closed session.
We need a
We have
motion
to-
and
Oh.
action on it.
Keeping me on track.
A lot of stuff.
I'll make a motion that we give authorization to the fire chief to enter into the dissolution agreement. I'm trying to get back up. there.
Execute.
Execute the agreement.
I'll second.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Director Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
and Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. Our next 2 items will be discussed after closed session. Moving on to reports. The president's report, I have none. Next is the fire chief's report.
Good evening, directors. First off, a few retirements. First, congratulations to Captain Greg Markle on his retirement. It was April 1st after 28 years of service. Greg was in his last couple of years here at EMS and did just an outstanding job, and congratulations to him for 28 years. Also, congratulations to business application analyst Sherry Martucci. She retired on April 5th after 23 years with the district. She was very helpful this past year with this dissolution, and she was very involved with the JPA a number of years ago. Recruitments that we have going on right now is the fire marshal recruitment. That closes tomorrow at 4 p.m. We have an SRP paramedic and an SRP EMT recruitment that is open. And Sherry Spot, the business applications analyst spot, is also open right now. Some updates that we did, myself and the deputies and Chief Law did a video message this week. We also, for myself, have had just a number of meetings on the Zinfandel First Responder Training Facility. And as you all know, tomorrow at 9 a.m. we will have a press conference out there with Assembly Member Ken Cooley. Also, over the last few weeks, we continue to meet with the APOT, which is the Ambulance Patient Offloading Time. The state committee with the 16 stakeholders continue to meet with the deadline of, I think it's June 15th, of completing the documentation for moving forward with what I would call either legislative or policies and procedures to improve APOT. I thought we'd already talked about it, but with the 3-week break, we had our Metro meeting with Citrus Heights on our 2x2. Director Orzali was there, and I'll let you and Director Gould kind of talk about our 2x2 that we had. We talked about some statistics over there, our impact fee, and the Zinfandel First Responder Training Facility. I also had an opportunity to go out to the Del Campo Fire Tech Program. A member who retired from here, Scott Schneider, has put together a high school program. It has been very, very supported by Del Campo and the district, and had an opportunity to spend the morning out there, not only with the students, but with Scott, and looking at what opportunities there are, especially in today's time when we look at recruiting and what they have right here in our district for being able to move forward with that. That was it was a really neat opportunity to go out there and hang out there for the day. Also, we've been doing the preliminary budget. We held our budget meetings with each of the different managers and groups going through preliminary budget. And next week, myself and the deputies will sit down and figure out the rest of the preliminary budget to bring it back to the board here in May. And finally, myself and Ty and Tyler went over on the 11th to the dispatch center and cooked breakfast for the dispatchers. This week is the National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. It was nice to be over there and kind of hang out for a number of hours with them and kind of have some conversation. Something a little different than they had done in the past, but it actually, each department picked a day. We went over there and cooked everybody breakfast. So very well done. That ends my report. For the operations report tonight, we have Chief Law, who is filling in for Deputy Chief Mitchell.
Good evening, directors. I'm Barbie Law. I'm your assistant chief in the EMS division. And as Chief Harm said, I've been covering Chief Mitchell since Monday this week. So some statistics for you since our last board meeting. We've run 5,799 total incidents since our last report that was given on March 24th, which is up a little bit since the last report to an average of 276 calls a day. The previous time period, we were at 266 calls per day. As far as the call types that we've gone on, we've been on 4,059 medical aids, which is actually 70% of the calls that we ran, or an average of 193 medical incidents a day. And during the same time period, we responded to 208 fires, which is 3.6% of the total calls that we ran on, averaging about 9.9 calls per day for fires, which was also an increase from the last report. Since the last report, we've had 2 notable incidents, both of which occurred this week while I've had the coverage. So that was good for me. The first call was last night, actually, in the early morning hours, sorry. B13C shift actually had a residential structure fire in Orangevale. This was a 2-story home with a victim trapped in an upstairs bedroom on the 2nd story. The crews did make a rescue of this victim and get her down and out of the house and transported to the hospital. By the time they got her to the hospital, she was alert and oriented and speaking to them. And so she is going to be making a full recovery from her injuries, is the report that I had from the hospital this afternoon. We checked in on her, and she's been admitted to the ICU, but is stabilized and will make a full recovery. So that was just an amazing job by our crews. Not only did they save the victim, they confined the fire to the room of origin and minimized damage to the home. So obviously a benefit for the family that's going to be dealing with the stressful time now dealing with their family member that was injured. The other major fire that we had this week occurred on Monday afternoon in Battalion 5 on B shift over on Auburn Boulevard. We actually had a 3-alarm commercial structure fire. This was a vacant strip mall that had had issues in the recent past with transients entering the building, and there were reports as the crews were responding that people were seen running from the building. So when the crews first arrived, they entered into an aggressive offensive attack and announced a life priority because there were reports that there were potentially people in the building. So they did what they could to make a search. This was a pretty challenging fire. We were dealing with, the conditions were complicated by high wind. And we did have an early roof collapse on the building. So Battalion Chief Fong did an excellent job of calling out to the crews his intentions and the need to switch to a defensive mode and quickly get a PAR and account for all of our people to know that everyone was safe and out of the building before we transitioned into that defensive attack. So that was a great job by Chief Fong. All told, it was 17 engines on scene, 6 trucks, 6 chiefs, EMS 24, and we had training captains out that assisted with some of the command and control functions on this fire. We did have some assistance with our partners from the Sacramento Fire Department to get control of this fire. It did take about 2¼ hours to bring this under control, and we did need assistance from Sac Suburban Water to boost the pressure in the area to support the aerial master streams and the ground monitors that were needed to control the fire load. I'm happy to say that we did not have any civilians injured, and there were no firefighters injured on this incident as well. And the operations were supported by both our CERT team and our reserve firefighters who came out and brought the air rig to keep all the firefighters supplied with air and food and water. And logistics assisted us with ordering a fuel truck because we did have some apparatus that had been pumping for so long that were running low on fuel. So thanks to logistics for helping out with that. Both of these fires are still currently under investigation by our arson investigations unit. So hopefully in the future, we'll be able to give you a report back on that. From the training division, I have an update from the Fire Academy. They're just finishing up week 7 of the academy. We've got 41 recruits currently. They completed their module 1 testing last week. And so we did lose a couple people through that testing process. This week they're currently working on their firefighter survival skills. So this is also known as their self-rescue skills, which is important for them to have before they enter into Fire Control 3, where they start doing some of their live burns. I have a couple of updates from the EMS division, and I would like to brag about some of my people, so humor me. First of all, Medic 62 on the C shift was recognized by UC Davis Medical Center for their exemplary care of a STEMI patient that occurred on March 31st. The crew actually identified STEMI very quickly. They immediately transported that STEMI 12 lead to the hospital so that they could get the cath lab ready. Once they got to UC Davis, they had a 34-minute door to intervention time, which is fantastic. They were able to go in and do an angioplasty and completely clear a clot for this patient, and she has made a full recovery. So we are working on a full commendation for all of the members that were on that call that participated in her care and this positive patient outcome. We have finished up getting our 90 new cardiac monitors and defibrillators are now out and deployed in the field. I wanted to say big thanks to Captain Joe Schmidt. He actually was instrumental in helping me get all of these monitors configured, and we spent, we had blocked 5 days to get the equipment out, and with his help, we were able to get it done a day and a half sooner than we thought. So everybody has their new equipment and that's working well. I also wanted to thank retired Captain Greg Markell. Greg really worked hard with Aaron Castleberry on all of the background work to get the AFG grant. So without the research and the work that Greg did on that, Aaron wouldn't have been as set up for success as she was. So thanks to both Captain Schmidt and Markell. Last project that we completed during this last cycle, we successfully implemented our new electronic narcotic tracking module in Operative IQ. Captain Scott Shield actually did all the work on this. He took this project on last July and actually went out for user training and then completely configured our program and rolled that out. We swapped out all of our narcotics in the entire system all on April 1st. So this is going to provide more efficiency for us in tracking and knowing where the medications are and assisting with swapping things out for better inventory control so we don't have medications that we've paid for expiring and having to be reverse distributed. So for me, this is huge. It's what has been on my bucket list for the last 3 years since I've been in here to get us off of a paper tracking system. So kudos to Scott for all the work he did on that. He was able to bring it across the finish line. Last update is from Special Ops. So first from Special Ops, our CERT team completed a basic entry-level class on April 9th with 7 new members. So I think that's really going to be a benefit for the program as we're approaching fire season and our holiday weekends on the river. They're always a great help out there with water safety and then supporting our extended fire operations. So it's good to see that those numbers are increasing. CERT, as I mentioned before, was also able to help on our 3-alarm fire on Monday, but they were also prepared to assist with the wind event that was expected on April 9th, but they were actually not required, so that was good. And then 3 of our dozer operators traveled to Camp Pendleton with our 2 dozers, and each member completed about 60 minutes of training in a variety of terrains in preparation for this year's fire season. So that's all I have. It's been a busy couple weeks. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Questions?
Okay. I just wanted to thank Chief Harms for giving me the opportunity to step in this week and cover for Adam. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving right along to firefighters local 522.
Your turn, man.
Sorry. Good evening, board. I also would like to congratulate Greg and Sherry on their retirement. They are great people and they were valued members for a long time. They brought a lot of good things to the organization. And so I'm happy that they're both off enjoying retirement. I would like to thank the members of this board for the priority that you have made to reconnect with the membership. Specifically this last week, President Sailors and Director Orzali, you're spending time with the crews out in the firehouses. I got a lot of really positive feedback, so thank you for that. It's been a while since we've been able to do that with a lot of the challenges we've seen over the last 2 years. So kind of to that tune too, many of you may not know, but we do a thing now called Mocha Mondays. So every Monday, myself and the directors are trying to connect with the membership geographically throughout the district. This time we got a little bit creative and we called it Mountain Mike Monday because we brought pizza to Fleet to connect with the folks from Fleet and facilities. And we also had some crews there. Really good conversation, just talking about the challenges that we all face and opportunities moving forward. And quickly the energy switched to mental health, specifically because of the event in South Placer on April 5th with Trent Jennings and the tragedy that took place there. A lot of us talked about the challenges that we currently are facing. And so in that, Jeremy Crawford was there. He's our Director of Member Services. He did a good job sharing a lot of the tools that we have available, EAP, Firestrong, our peer support, spousal support groups. So I feel like we in the organization are very fortunate to have those things. One thing we took from that conversation is that we're still healing. It has been a really challenging couple of years. And the challenge has been different for everybody based on family impact, personal, professional, all of those things. So moving forward, I know it's going to still take some time. We're going to have staffing challenges as people heal. This week is a snapshot of spring break and people wanting to be with their families. Literally, I think Disneyland just allowed people to go shake Mickey Mouse's hand. So everybody wants to go do that because they have not been able to for 2 years. So I anticipate us still working through that healing process through the summer. And we are absolutely committed and prioritizing ensuring that we provide quality service to our communities. But I think that we as an organization with your leadership and the fire chief are going to have to look at collective creative work schedules and opportunities for folks to be able to navigate that. And we may see changes and have to be more agile than we've ever been in the past. We're already starting that with our service delivery committee and how we are looking at our deployments into the future. So I think I just want to leave everybody with coming out of that conversation at Mountain Mike's Monday was use the tools that we have. And that goes for everybody. I'm sure that a number of you are feeling the same stresses that all of us are. It was a challenging time for us, but use the help. And if somebody asks for it, be the help as well. Right. So again, thank you all for your support. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Next up, committee and delegate reports. First, the executive committee met tonight at 5 p.m. There was no reportable action taken. We will meet again on May 12th at 5 p.m. Next up, Communication Center JPA. Looks like it is DC.
Bailey. Good evening, Ty Bailey, Deputy Chief of the Administration. I'm covering for Chief Wagaman, who is attending the Western Fire Chiefs Community Wildfire Resilient Project out of state. The last regularly scheduled board meeting was scheduled for April 12th. That meeting was canceled, and the next board meeting is scheduled for May 10th at 9 a.m. here at Metro headquarters. That is the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, California Fire and Rescue Training JPA Chief Farms.
Our next meeting is April 20th. No other report.
End of report. Next up, Finance and Audit Committee, Director Rosali.
Finance and Audit Committee has not met, and the next meeting is to be determined.
Thank you. Next, Policy Committee, Director Gould.
It looks like the policy committee will have a meeting May 12th at 5:30 in chambers.
Thank you. Next up, board member questions and comments. Nice. Who shall we start with? Director Jones.
What a surprise. Thank you, Madam President. Congratulations to all the folks on the retirements, and best of luck in the future on that. I also did attend 2 of the 3 preliminary budget meetings. It was very informative and a good chance for interaction with more and more of our members, both civilian as well as sworn. And I appreciate everybody's efforts and time to contribute to those discussions. It's very informative. And looking forward to tomorrow at 0900. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Thank you.
Next up, Director Kelly.
Well, I guess I would have to say that it's a sad thing to see the JPA go away. Was involved with that for a fair amount of years. Thank you for your report, Ms. Law. And everybody have a good rest of, or a good Easter. Excuse me.
Thank you. Next up, Director Sheets.
Good evening. I too wanted to congratulate the retirees. I wish them the best of luck. So proud to hear and not surprised about the exceptional care that was delivered for our STEMI patient, and no doubt contributed to her survival. So I love hearing that, and 34 minutes is absolutely incredible. So well-deserved accommodations for the crew. And I also would like to wish everybody a safe and happy Easter. I hope you do get to spend time with your family, and thank you to the crews who will be working and unable to spend time with their family. That's all.
Thank you. Director Wood.
I just want to thank Chief Law for her report, and I'm glad to hear that the medics that were involved in that UC Davis transport are getting recognized. I do hope that there's some recognition given to the crew that worked on that Orangevale fire and helped out that patient as well. That they deserve to be recognized for their work. So thank you.
Thank you,
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Director Rosali.
Thank you. Just briefly, I did have the opportunity to meet in the station with some of our firefighters, and it was really nice to be able to get back and have that personal contact. I admire the sense of purpose that they exhibited and their interest in trying to understand what happens in our little puzzle palace. That was a nice event, and I appreciate 522's efforts in putting that together for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rosali. Director Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank everyone for their excellent reports tonight. Chief Law, you did an exceptional job. A lot of information there tonight, and you kept us engaged. I also would just encourage all of us that when we use medical acronyms, that we help our public understand, because this whole word of STEMI's probably got some people fairly curious tonight of what a STEMI patient is. Anyway, there's still a lovely human being that's being transported for a cardiac event. But anyway, thank you very much for all the work that's been done this last couple of weeks, as was described tonight. And I'm very grateful that our leadership is making decisions on the fire ground and in other locations that keep all of our men and women safe. I think that's a very sharp thing to do. And I'm glad that there's that critical thinking ability. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Director Gould. Director White.
Okay, well, first, I also want to acknowledge the good work of the crews regarding the level of care that we provide, advanced level of care, and their ability to integrate well with hospital staff and achieve the best patient outcome we could hope for. Also, this last week was the Fire Districts Association of California conference in Napa, and the conference concluded with a discussion of past, present, and future fire service. And it was a 2-panel discussion with former Fire Chief Kurt Hinkey and firefighter paramedic Ian Brady. And I just want to say I was very impressed with firefighter Brady, the way his composure, the way he responded to the questions of this facilitated discussion. And I think that, ultimately it was very beneficial discussion. I think it helped people gain more perspective and even an appreciation for our newest members of the fire service, how they view the job, the way they think, act, and feel about the job and the organization. So I was very impressed by Ian Brady, the way he answered the questions and presented himself, and he represented Metro Fire very well. And I just wanted to thank him for doing so. With that, I also, it's unfortunate to see the JPA dissolution. I'm glad that we got as many years out of that partnership or relationship as we did, and I'm sure that we will find new ways to move forward and collaborate with each other. So, thanks.
Thank you. Director Clark.
Happy Easter.
That's it?
That's it.
All right.
Everything else has been talked about.
I too would like to express my congratulations to the retirees and thank Assistant Chief Barbie Law for her wonderful presentation. That was very detailed. And I too express sadness at the dissolution of the JPA. That was a very special JPA because it was the only training regional type of training in the state of California that actually one of the partners was the state of California. There were no other JPAs or training partners in this state that actually had the state of California as one of the partners. So that for me is a sad thing to see go away. But it opens new doors. And so hopefully we will find new solutions and other training opportunities. I just want to remind everyone to have a happy Easter and stay safe out there and continue to do the great job. And thank you, Engine 26, for your wonderful dinner the other night. Have a nice evening. Stay safe. And we are going to close session now. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
Pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.9, concerning two matters of industrial disability retirement, I'm looking for a motion and a second on the Joseph M. Rays.
Director Sealers, if I could say, before you do that, let me report out that those two matters concerning the industrial disability retirement issues for Joseph Reyes and Roy Rudd were considered in closed session. No reportable action was taken in closed session, subject to motion and action in open session here. Also on item number 2, the board met concerning the 910 claim of Kayla Kalan. The board took action and determined or decided to deny the claim and refer the matter to its insurance pool. And the board also met in closed session with its labor negotiators for the negotiations involving the employee organizations listed in the closed session agenda, and no reportable action was taken. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion in a second.
You're separate though, right?
Yeah, we're
We do it separately.
Yeah.
Separate.
Yeah,
For Joseph Reyes.
Yeah, for Joseph Reyes.
And I'll second Director Clark's recommendation for Joseph M. Rays.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, roll the call, please.
Director Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
and Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Concerning the item 3-B, Roy Rudd, I'll take a motion in a second.
Madam Chair, I move that we follow staff's recommendation and determine Rudd is not eligible for an IDR.
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Director Gould,
Aye.
Orzali,
Aye.
Wood,
Aye.
Sheets,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
and Sailors.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. And that is, the meeting is adjourned for tonight. Thank you very much. Everyone have a happy Easter. And
Thanks,
see you
Madam
next
Chair.
time. Thank you.
All right.